Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Community Connection. And speaking of welcome back, Melvinator.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
How was vacation?
It was great. It was very rainy, but relaxing.
You went all the way to Maine?
I did, yeah.
Why would you do that?
My mom's side of the family's been going for like 30 years, so it's tradition.
I spent a weekend one summer in Maine swimming in the lakes up there. Very cold, lots of mosquitoes.
Yeah.
But we missed you.
Yeah, I missed you guys too. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Glad to have you back. Claudia Fletcher.
Robert J. Day.
Good to see you as always. You got anything on your mind?
No, and I'm waiting to see what you're going to say.
I'm actually at a loss of what I'm going to say today.
Oh, thank God.
So that just means I'll sneak something in later.
I hope not.
I know that you are excited to introduce us to our next guest.
I am.
Not just because of his work, but I know you consider him a friend,
I do.
right? Influencer in a really tough space that we work in here at Patrick Henry Family Services. It's a space. It's an issue that brings a lot of kids into foster care, and that is the issue of substance abuse. And so, why don't you introduce us to our guests, and let's have a wonderful conversation. See what we can learn today about that.
And we are going to work really hard to call it substance use disorder and not substance
Claudia.
abuse because
Disorder.
I've learned some things from my friend Mark. Substance use disorder.
All right.
So my friend Mark, and it's Bogia, right?
Bogie.
Bogia. Bogie. Say it.
Bogie.
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 I have never
It's
said
probably Boja, but my family's always said
Bogie. Like bougie, but not quite.
Bougie.
Cool. Okay, so my friend Mark Bougie. Bougie. See, I never
Bogie.
say the last one. Bogie. I'm not going to get it wrong again.
That's all right.
Anyway, Mark and I met through Vision 30 and we had some interesting conversations, and he has become a friend. And the day that like solidified forever in my husband and my heart was the day that we were really struggling with one of our sons who was addicted to meth, and we could not let him come back home, and he was living in his car, and we were afraid because he was getting so erratic. And so I just texted Mark and knew that Mark would know where we were as parents, because he's been coaching me not to be an enabler for a long time, because it's very hard not to be. And I knew he would have answers for us as to what to do. And he gave me answers, but he went and met my son in his car and figured out a way to get him into the program. And it was like a crucial moment in our history as parents, and Mark was there for me. So that's the friendship piece that is important. But there's also Mark has a great story, not because the beginning is great, but because of his resilience and the things he's done. So I want him to tell us who he is, where he works, and then give us a little idea of why it is that you even want to work in this space, and how is it connected to you?
Well, I work at Register Recovery. We're located on 3000 Langhorne Road, right across from the Miller Park ball fields. And I handle most of the business side of things there. I got involved with, or got involved in this field because I myself was a serious alcoholic, seriously addicted to methamphetamines. It was a daily struggle for me for many, 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 many years. Countless hospitalizations, countless detox, countless program after program after program, different kinds of programs, thinking that the program was supposed to fix me without me doing much. Like, where's my miracle?
Yeah.
And when I came here to Rhodes, which I had told you earlier, I was petrified to come because I thought it's too much freedom for me. And at the age of 46, 2016, the day before Thanksgiving, I arrived from Roanoke from a stint in detox, my last stint in detox, and begged for a haircut on the way up. Had nothing. I always tell a trash bag story because that's literally what I had with me, a hefty bag with some clothes in it. And there was just this piece about where I'd come. And our organization is run by peers. It's called Peer Recovery Support. It's a real growing field in the behavioral health field, being helped by those with lived experience. And we all have some kind of lived experience with something. And because it worked for me, and because I was so relaxed and at ease, because I was around people who were just incredibly supportive and taught me the importance of connection to others, I could open up and be open to suggestions and a different way of life. And it just caught on pretty quickly. I think at 6 months I said, I think I can do this. Because I had never had that long, ever. I'd always sneak a little bit in between, maybe manage to maintain the illusion of sobriety longer than 6 months. But, when you're walking around with those lies inside, it's just,
Wow.
it kills you inside, really, because you're lying. And it just, I started working for them at 6 months part-time with not really much experience in finances, for sure, because I certainly never paid bills. My credit was in the toilet. And it just, a series of events led me to, kind of go up the ladder into the leadership team and really guide some growth, and with the help of our founder, Sandy Keneal. And my roommate from my recovery house, Brian Mead, who is our chief operating officer, it's just how it just grew into this beautiful thing and this vision of, putting our peers to work. My vision is to have everybody that works there have been through our program. And we're slowly getting there. But it's not for everybody, as you probably know. This field of, giving back and helping, it can really take a toll on you emotionally sometimes, the ups and the downs. But to be able to be, to be able to give some hope and show that, this is real. Recovery is real. as I said earlier, there's more people in long-term recovery than there are in addiction. And
And I'd like you to repeat that because that was profound when I heard it earlier. Say that again.
there are more people living in long-term recovery than there are struggling with addiction. Recovery is possible, but it takes support, it takes connection, and it takes stable housing. It takes social support, like our partnership here at Vision 30, and it takes, a purpose in life, a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's what we at Registry Recovery do every day with employment services, with connections to all different kinds of resources. And
So it's more than recovery. You're building a life.
it's a quality of life, building a life worth being sober
Yeah.
for.
So would you say that your recovery didn't bring you back to the place where you started using or drinking? It's taken you further than where
That
you,
I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
I mean, I still pinch myself. Like every time I get approved for another credit card, I'm like, oh my God. It's just weird because like I tell people I get high watching my credit go up. That's how I get high nowadays. That joke's getting old to some people, but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, at 45, 46, I mean, death was an option because I thought life was over. It was over for me. It was like, I'm never going to get to the level, because I came from, the suburbs. Some of our peers come from complete dysfunction, with drug addicted parents, and they didn't have to go to school. They didn't have to clean up after themselves. They didn't know how to get a job because they didn't have to work, and I had all that instilled in me. So I was a little lucky. I even had my driver's license when I got here, by the grace of God. That's a miracle in itself.
So we didn't talk about this before. We usually prep people, and then, but I want to talk just a little bit about. I'm gonna say that again. 46, right? Because, and this is going out to anybody who's connected with somebody who's in this journey, and you know how cyclical it is. Because we have a couple of sons, and it's been years, and so 46, there's a lot of crap up to 46, right? And I know that you've talked to me about your relationship with your mom, and I just think it would be great for the people who are watching to hear how she's still in your life. She stuck through that, but there were times where she had to stop. So do you mind sharing that?
Not at all. I was always kind of felt on the outside of my family. I was always felt different. I always thought it was like 3 against 1, and part of my drinking allowed me to feel normal, and because I'm seriously an introvert, and my mom was always there for me. She really was. I mean, God bless my father, but he wasn't very involved. He was an educator, so I think he was just, I dealt with children all day. I'm not dealing with you now, unless it was, I did something wrong. So my mom was really, my dad, she took me to baseball. She did all this, everything for me. As I got older and more rebellious and just wanted to be away, my drinking really started to take off. I realized I had a drinking problem at a very young age, but there wasn't that kind of support out there. Nobody really directed me anywhere. And we lost touch. I was like, they called me the prodigal son. I'd go away for a year, come back. And finally, they just said, get your what together and call us, because they had seen me do it for 2 months and like, oh, maybe this is it. Nope.
And pay for
Maybe
it too,
it's-
right?
yeah.
They had paid for you
Yeah,
to
they
try
were
to get-
definitely, they weren't a lovey-dovey, we weren't huggers or, I love you every day. It was, they would pay to get me to where I had to go or pay my rent so it was mostly financial, but they were there with me in the hospital a few times, a couple suicide attempts. But yeah, so when I got to Rhodes, I took their suggestion because, at another program, they were like, just write a vent letter because it seems like you've got a lot of blame going on here. Write it down. And when I really thought about it, I was like, the only thing that could come to my mind was they really tried to help. All the things that they did to help, and that's, I hate to say it's the best they could, because they, maybe they could have done better. I don't know.
But you have
But
to know,
once I
you
came
have to
to
know
that
better to do
realize-
better, though, right?
Exactly. And but once I could get past the blame, it was just kind of sending letters. I sent one to my sister first because I knew she'd probably be the most receptive, and then my father, who kind of turned into a softie in his old age, and my mom was the hardest because we're a lot alike, and she wrote me just a little note back, which that's all she could give at that time. But it wasn't enough for me at the time because I wanted, oh, I love you, oh, I'm so happy for you, I'm proud of you, come home. But it was like, it's going to take some time, blah, blah, blah. Recovery's a process. And then finally, my father had a medical emergency, and it had been probably 6 months since we were communicating. And then it was like it had never happened. And because I had some sustained recovery. It'd been over a year, almost 2 years at that point. Now I'm home every month.
Every month, yes. You go on vacation every month.
I'm trying to cut back because the mileage is getting a little. I got to go to Delaware.
So the word enabling often is part of the conversations about these kind of things. Do you feel like your family enabled you for a while, or were they?
I wouldn't compare it to like Claudia's situation.
I quit.
You do more, but you have that. I'm not saying my parents don't have that kind of love for their children. It's just different.
Okay.
And they were just done. And because my parents drink quite a bit, my parents owned liquor stores. So it was like that was a way of life in our house. And they were successful and got up and went to work every day. They didn't understand why I couldn't do it. Like, Uncle Larry quit drinking, why can't you? And it's like, it's just not that easy. And so I wasn't going to try to explain it to them. That just all-consuming thoughts of wanting to use.
Yeah.
They didn't. I think my father may have at later stages in life, but like my mom barely drinks now. But yeah, so it was hard for them to get because it was like, well, you can't expect us not to drink if you come home. And it's like, really? For 6 hours once a year, you can't not drink. So it was like,
So I think we're going to do a commercial in a second and transition, but I think that one of the things that has been really helpful as far as our friendship and our as colleagues and as friends is just that reminder. And January 1 this year is when I really did stop enabling, because I read a definition that when you enable someone, it's rescuing them from the consequences of their own behaviors. And I had gotten to the point where, okay, I'm not going to give you any money with certain kids if I knew they were using or whatever. But when they get themselves into a jam, my role in life has always to fix that, right? And so then I'd be jumping in to fix something to rescue them from the consequences of their own behaviors. And you had said to me, until they hit rock bottom, until they have to face their addiction, they're not going to get better. And so that has been super helpful in just reframing the way.
well, that's an
was very
addiction.
nice.
Like I tell
Yes,
mothers or
that's what you
fathers
told
I
me.
speak to, it's like, you're doing exactly what I do with a bottle. And every time I pick up, I'm expecting it to be different. It's going to be different this time. And that's the definition of insanity. And it's like, you keep doing it and you expect them to change, and you can't change them.
And you can't change yourself because you're just as addicted to the enablement as you are. And that's one of the things that the definition said, and that Mark said to me, is you're just as much of an addict as your kids are if you're addicted to this rescuing piece that is not going to be helpful to them. And now you can't stop doing it. And so all of that's been a journey for me. But what I think is so helpful in hearing Mark's story is not just that he actually is who he is now, which is very cool, but that he had, all those years of the back and forth and the up and down, and to just hang in there and have hope. Because if you've got the hope, whether you're the parent or the spouse or the child of someone who's caught in addiction, if you have the hope, and you know that it isn't instantaneous, and you don't get sucked into believing the lies and being manipulated, that eventually there are those situations where it finally clicks and success can happen after that.
Well, we're going to transition and start talk about roads and the work that you do and the needs that you guys might have there. We're going to watch a little commercial regarding our Kinship Navigator program, and we know there's a lot of kids who are being cared for by extended family for the very same reasons that we've been talking about today. So let's take a look at this real quick.
I think simply put, kinship care is family, fictive kin, which is godparents, close family friends, stepping into the primary caregiver role for a child.
A relative gives of their time and their resources to care for someone they didn't give birth to, but it's out of love and it's out of just desire to stay connected and keep them within the family.
Anyone who has that close relationship with the child, being willing to step in and say, like, I'm going to be that safe space for that child, and then keeping them from so much other trauma and other experiences. I just love that they're able to step in and be that person for them.
Kinship Navigator gets to be not just a piece that wraps around a family, but also the connector that is bringing so many of the other pieces to that circle of support so a family can be stable and move to a place of thriving.
I've had a lot of background in direct care roles, and I love being able to provide that assistance with people without that direct care portion. So being able to meet the family where they are when they call is really important to me, to be able to work through what they need and get them connected with those needs.
So everyone needs help from time to time, and when you become a kinship caregiver, you need help accessing those resources, because there's a lot out there that you might not be aware of. You are becoming a caregiver after maybe 30 years of not having a child in your home. Kinship Navigator, we connect those families to the community resources that they need to go from surviving to thriving.
Kinship care is nothing new. Kinship Navigator, far more new, and that's part of our job, is to explain that. And essentially, it's our way to get involved with the family. One of the beautiful things about foster care, it's put in place, and there's financial support and there's social support. The label itself doesn't change anything, but it gives validity to what you're doing.
So we often like to start with just asking them to, hey, tell me your story, tell me what has brought you here today. And it's just so great to see them open up, and some of them feel relieved. They're like, oh my goodness, thank you for listening.
I think the most common need is support. And honestly, navigation, kinship navigation. They need to know where to go and what to do in this new role in their life. And sometimes it's just a listening ear.
When I started my journey as a kinship caregiver, I didn't know at all that that was a term or that it was a thing. I just knew that my husband and I, as uncle and aunt to our niece and nephew, that we were taking care of them. And gosh, wouldn't it have been nice if somebody had come alongside and said, did you know there's this program you can call? There's no charge to it. And their only goal is to help you assess what's going on and to say, here's some areas where you're really got some good strengths. And here's some areas where it looks like you could use some support.
It's important to have people in your corner, because it can be isolating as a caregiver. And I say that in the sense of, you might be going back to stage 1, having babies in diapers and crying, screaming tantrums in the grocery store when you haven't had that for 18, 20, 30 years.
Most of our families come through referrals. So we have connections with DSS, we're connected to CPS, we're known in a lot of the school systems. So a lot of it is a referral sheet, and we get the referral with a brief description of who's caregiver, what's the role of the child, how long have they been doing it, what's their phone number.
There's a lot of the aunties and the uncles, even godparents. Even if you were a child's teacher and you built that relationship with them, in the future, if they were to need a safe place to go, you could be that person for them.
I think family is a huge support system, and I don't believe that family has to be blood. I think family can be your community. I think family could be a social worker, family could be a friend, family could be anyone that provides you with that support that you need to get through even the smallest struggles.
Family is something that can be a constant in your life, and I just love that you always have someone there that has experienced life with you, that will continue to experience life with you, that has made an impact in your life.
And that's what we do at Kinship Navigator. We would talk to our caregivers and we assess the whole family, and then we say, what are areas we can come along and journey with you? And if somebody would have journeyed with us along the way, I think we all could have taken a much deeper breath and had a stronger foundation to start from. And I want to give that to people.
Mark, first of all, thank you for being transparent, sharing that story, which you've probably done 1,000 times, right?
I wonder who's sick of hearing it.
Well,
It's the story.
It,
Yeah, the
it-
story
and
doesn't
it's
change,
and it's
really.
the story. We've had some themes today in telling your story, support, how important that is. We'd like to talk about meaningful relationships at Vision 30. Key, programs cannot replace meaningful relationships. Tell us about Rose Recovery and what are kind of the things that are happening there that are making real differences.
So it's a peer-run, peer substance use management program. We have a residential program, which we will have on the 15th, our 7th house. So that will be 3 women's homes and 4 men's homes. Providing that long-term support and connection that's there 24/7 is really the core piece to finding recovery. And everybody that works there is either directly or indirectly affected by addiction. Be it our founder, who has family history. Most of us, about 5 of us, actually went through the program. And the support, the meaningful support is that, every day we sit at a conference table and we go through our census. Every day we talk about Dom when Dom was with us, how's he doing today? Oh, he got a job, And it's that, so we are all connected to each peer, even if we're not interacting with them on a daily basis, but we see them and we can know what's going on in their life. And that means something because for so long you feel so isolated and so alone. You feel there's no solution. And when you can allow people in, especially people with lived experience, that can say, I can understand where you're coming from, or just to listen to you. And they know that, I don't ever put down the clinical side of treatment because it was very important to get my physical health back and, get me grounded. But that connection with somebody who has walked in your shoes, and to know that they're there for you every day. Everybody has their own peer coach who's certified. They go through training and a state certification process. And we do a lot of family support, meetings, walk into the center. We get a lot of people just who maybe their job sent them because they tested positive for something. But our hub is just where we are now on Langhorne Road. Like, my vision was just to have people in and out all day long. And we have 12-step meetings there. So just to see that community, because that is so necessary for recovery to flourish. Because the second you think you can do it on your own,
Can't.
And I think that one of the keys is in the housing, where you provide housing, there is no timeline.
there's no timeline.
And that
Is
huge.
unusual. It did. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that even in a lot of the programs that are both for substance use disorder or domestic violence or whatever, there's a time limit. And as soon as you enter a program when you know the time is over, you're hyper focused on how to get ready for that moment. And you can't just stop and deal with the, like, what's happening to me right now and be fully present, because you're always worried about what's going to happen in 30 days or 90 days or, you know, the 28-day program, right? It's what's going to happen on day 29 if I go into a 28-day program.
Yeah, to be able to tell somebody you have a home for as long as you need it to be your home. You can lay your head on your pillow tonight knowing that this is going to be where you live. As long as you participate in your own recovery, we can't do it for you.
Yeah. So it's not an enabling kind of a situation where you have no worries, we're going to take care of you.
No,
They've got to do the work, don't they?
There's accountability.
Yeah.
But there's also, you know, we help find jobs. You know, we help get them the therapy if they need it. We have on-site psychologists. We have connections to those who need medical assisted treatment. You know, medications like Suboxone or methadone. Most people take Suboxone, but
In your one of your women's homes at least, people can have their kids with them, right? Which is so Vision 30, like the heart of what we're trying to do.
which is how we kind of got connected, because we were entering that realm, because we saw the need. It's such a barrier for women. You know, they have children, and the men can go off, and the mothers stay. And I'm not saying all. Some women leave, and the fathers stay. But more often than not, it's the women, and they can't they don't want to put their kids in foster care, or they do, and then they go knowing that they have a safe space to come to with their child. And to be able to look at that child every day as they're doing it. And seeing, you know, I'm not a huge kid person, I'll be honest. I've never had them, but, you know, to walk into the house and see the kids, it's their home. That makes me so happy. And to see that, you know, we've become part of that extended family of support that they need, so that, you know, whoever it is can get the help that they need.
So Mark, I know you've probably said something today that has touched somebody in a way that says, I'd like to help. And they don't have a lot of what you're talking about in a peer is that people who've lived through this are helping other people come out of that. But if you've not experienced it, you could still be involved in this, I imagine, in some meaningful way that would help those. So what is it that Rose Recovery needs the most, and how could others help?
We could always use monetary donations just to help with our, you know, service line. Right now, with the new Women's House, we have a wish list posted up on our website and on Facebook, and it's kind of itemized. So, like, if we needed 10 beds, and we got 10 beds. We still need dressers. Anything to make a house a home, because we take pride in our houses. You know, some of our peers come in like, this is the nicest place they've ever lived. You know, and it's not just about putting a bed in the room with a nightstand. You know, we want to put pictures up, and we make sure, you know, they have Wi-Fi, and all that stuff costs a lot of money. But furnishing this is a 2,500 square foot home, which will house 8 to 10 women with children. It's got a lot of room. Area rugs, stuff for the kitchen, vacuum cleaners. And somebody to donate a washer and dryer, all that kind of stuff.
Are there opportunities to volunteer in some way?
Yes, I would suggest calling the office for that. We're having a fundraiser this on the 22nd at our offices. It's a car wash, kind of getting the word out, because it is surprising sometimes. So we're centrally located. Thousands of people drive by our building every day, and people are like, oh, I didn't know you were there. And I'm like, because I can't tell anybody where I work or give it, you know, without them. Oh, my brother, or you know, my girlfriend, or whatever it is. I mean, everybody has somebody that's affected, because it doesn't just affect the addict; it affects the entire family. Because if she's worried about Dom, that's taking her away from the love, and not that she gives any less, but you know,
Yeah,
He
it's a
just
challenge.
distracts. It's like that one problem child in a classroom that the teacher has to focus on. It kind of takes away from everything else. So,
Well, Mark, I wish we had more time. We could talk about this, and you've got a compelling story. Thank you for sharing it and doing some marvelous work down there. Really, really important work.
I didn't mention real quick, our
Yes.
10-year gala is September 21st. We'd love to have you all
Okay.
there. 10 years of being incorporated
Yay.
as an organization. Yeah, we're really excited about that. So it'll be at the
Congratulations.
Academy.
Very good. Folks, I know that you've probably got connected in some way. I learned something today, not just intellectually, but emotionally. Learned something today. If there's any way that you can help the Ministry of Rose Recovery, reach out to them. We recommend that. We encourage you to do that. And have a blessed week, and we'll see you next Thursday on Community Connection.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.